It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to It's About to Go Down. I am Marc Williams.
And I'm Cathey Armillas. We have Lestarya Molloy with us. She is the founder and CEO of Friday Outdoors. And she has this awesome idea about using nature as medicine. Like, why don't we get out more? She's also a mom, a wife, a camper. Marc, I don't know about you, but I didn't enjoy camping, but Lestarya, it's like almost got me ready to go back and try it. She's a gardener, she's a hiker, and a recent marathoner. Congratulations. That's a big feat. So Lestarya, welcome to our show. And we're excited to talk to you about nature as medicine.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And to be here with you two, while we're having this conversation, I'm just going to imagine that we are out on the trails having this conversation.
Love it.
Like that.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about this and how, because I know that you left a really good tech job to start Friday Outdoors, and you're very passionate about helping people to get outside. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, man, it's so crazy because, my career really started in the tech world. I have been really passionate about the difference that technology can make in people's lives. And while I was doing my thing, I was always getting people outside. It was just something that happened really naturally. And, I'll say growing up, I wasn't like this outdoorsy person by any means. In fact, I think my first time going on a hike, I was like the person on the trail with like my hood on and was like, oh my God, don't the plants touch me. So I just want to set that as the tone. That was my starting point. But just over time for me, I found healing in the outdoors. Both my parents had passed away at a young age. And so nature just became this way of like hiking to heal. And that's what I did for years. And I literally kept inviting friends to come join me. Little did I know that all those times I was hiking at campgrounds and noticing people camping and looking so happy. Little did I know that I would become a camper because I just became so curious to be like, I love hiking and what that's done for me. What would happen if instead of an hour hike, I actually had 48 hours of uninterrupted time amongst the trees and camping. And you can predict, I started taking people out. I was building my career. But on the weekends, I'd be outdoors. And then there's just a certain point where I was like, man, people love this. Like, but there's so many reservations about getting out there. So how could I have even more impact on really like millions of people who really need the outdoors in their life, right? And that's what motivated me to take the leap from an amazing job I had in the tech industry to then say my next chapter is really about, as I've made the world more efficient, a lot smarter with tech, now let me help people really get outside and disconnect because that's equally as important, if not even more.
All right. I'm Mr. Concrete Jungle.
I was waiting. I was like, oh, here we go. New York.
And my youngest, he's probably more concrete jungle than I am. Like the minute you say outside, we're thinking bugs, we're thinking animals, we're thinking buzzing, we're thinking roaring. We're thinking all kinds of things that we don't want to be around. And yet, and that's often the association that people have. So first of all, I just wonder, what do you say to that? To everybody who's just like, they're thinking about all the creatures and the pests and the inconvenience of that. Like, what do you say to somebody like me, Mr. Concrete Jungle, to even get me to step outside?
Oh, I feel you. That was me. I was like, even, like spiders are like, why would you want to touch the plants? Like, I just, I really, so when I say I understand.
Mm.
And I think the shift I would do on that is also ask as much time as we spend on the, ooh, I don't know about that. I think I'd shift to the what if, right? Be like,
Mm.
what would happen if you did step into nature
Mm.
and allow the really nature to do what it does best, which is heal, what it does best, which is bring clarity.
Mm.
I mean, there's plenty of studies, like pick a study. There's studies in the world that show being out in nature, just being there, does wonders for us. So I think as much as maybe spending time on the ooh, what if, just be like, ooh, what if? But think about the benefits piece of it.
Mm. I love that, Listea. I would even pile on that and go, really, what's the worst thing that can happen? You know,
Mm,
like, I mean, really, because sometimes I've been recently, and okay, I'm the bridge between you two, I think a little bit, because I grew up in LA, Mark, so I get it. We didn't like the mountains are just different there. There's lots of mountains, but they're dry and brown. And so there's some people that hike that way. I never did growing up. And it wasn't until I came to the Pacific Northwest. And then I was like, why isn't everybody in the world doing this? I get that, Listea, right? So I might be the bridge between that. But then when I started going to national parks, I really even saw a bigger like bump. And I would ask myself, because there's some parks, Mark, where there's bears. And I'm not trying to meet a bear on a trail. Like I get it. But really, for the most part, nature and getting out and what Listea is talking about, like, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? Like you see a little tiny, you see a little snail or you see a spider, but comparing that with the great, all the great things that you could get from it, oh, it's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, the risk versus reward is heavily skewed towards nature. Heavily.
yeah. I mean, I tell you, remember the hike we did? And man, I remember coming and I had so much on my mind about like, work and all this. But then as soon as we stepped onto the trail, it was like my shoulders went down. I think we even breathed really deeply, right? Because a lot of times, like in their day to day, we're like you're not even breathing as deeply as you really can. But out there, like I think after an hour, I was like, man, we gotta go hiking. So we need to hike some more, just so you know.
You
But
totally do.
I was like, I could have sat in front of my laptop for an hour and maybe gotten a little something done, but still just felt that stress that it just slows you down when you have that. Versus we went for that hike for maybe like an hour, hour and a half or something. I got way more done that afternoon than I would have got if I just like stayed at home and like, oh, let me like grind it out. No, like that was did amazing wonders for like my energy that day. And actually, I think the next 2 days I was still on that high from what I was getting out there.
Yeah.
You know what it's got me wondering?
Why
Part
you're
of it
not hiking
is
right now, Mark? Is that what it just got you wondering?
no, what it's got me wondering is what is it that, and I know you talked about hiking, but like part of it is the environment. And I'm guessing that, and then you said you let your shoulders down. So there's something you're also allowing yourself, freeing yourself to do in that space. And I'm just curious, what do you do? Like, even maybe before the hike, what do you do to sort of get your shoulders to relax and to get your mind free in that moment?
Mm. Well, for me, it really starts with, you know, whatever I got done at work, right? Because let's face it, that's what we're doing a lot of times is like working or we're like, oh, I gotta do like the laundry, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. I'm like, you know what? I give myself permission to say, life is about all the experiences, and I really want to make sure that I am soaking it up as much as possible. And so I'm going to let myself say, "You did a great job. Let's go have some playtime." And um, I'll then just go out and be really good with giving myself permission to have space to just be and be so present amongst the trees. And one thing I really like about preparing to go out is that I'm also mentally preparing that I'm not going to have like notifications popping up or reminders of like, oh, you got to do that thing, or oh, remember to get that thing at the grocery store, right? Like, it's kind of like preparing to have this space that allows me to just be in the moment and be so present that these ideas and thoughts and feelings that I have that can get suppressed by all the things happening in the world that are like just kind of vying for time, that I allow these ideas to flourish and really come to surface. And man, I think I've gotten my best ideas when I'm not in front of the laptop. It's actually when I'm out camping and giving myself that space to just be, where I get ideas that then benefit me when I come back. So I kind of have to like go away to come back. And that was even before my work was about the outdoors. It's crazy the things that I've solved being out there. And of course, I have to write it down so I can remember when I come back. But yeah, that's kind of how I prepare. It's like prepare myself to just give myself permission to have that space to just be and see what surfaces, because I won't know unless I really carve out that space.
Oh my gosh. That just reminds me that we should talk about a real benefit, which is negative ions. People talk about forest bathing. The Japanese translated word for that is called forest bathing. And negative ions are these positive energy molecules that are in the air in places in nature, really high with running water. So if you happen to be at a waterfall or a flowing river, it's even higher in abundance there. And I will tell you, living proof of what Lestarya is saying, I came up with a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign when I was still doing marketing for a huge client. And it became it was a campaign that ran over multiple years, and it was a multi-million-dollar spend. I was sitting the whole week, Marc, in the office going, I got a pitch on Friday. I got to come up with a good idea. I could not. I sat in front of a waterfall and I just vegged out for like 10 minutes. And this idea that seemed so simple, like I was like, how did I miss it the whole time I was sitting in front of my computer? Just like flowed right into my head and was like, here you go. So there's real benefits. In fact, I'll say one more thing, Marc, because I see your head spinning. They have kind of proven that scientifically the reason why we come up with good ideas in the shower is because of negative ions, almost from the same effect that you get in more abundance in nature. But there's actually running water, and it's causing creativity and memory and all these like happy energy things that are flowing through your body.
Man, right? This right here. You could have sat in front of your laptop for longer. But I think it was way more fun to get in front of that waterfall and let that creativity really come out that might not have come out otherwise. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for sharing that as well. A lot of times when we think about nature as vitamin or as medicine, we think about mindfulness and self-care, which I think is incredibly important. What you're also adding to it is there's that other vitamin C called creativity. And
I love that.
To talk about being able to free the mind in a world where we're always on this hustle, right? And we stay inside and we stay in front of the computer because something's got to get done. I can't go outside because I got to finish this. When is it ever finished? I don't know. And going outside for a hike, a walk, to be in nature, seems like it's either a waste of time or it's taken away from what I've got to do. And what I'm hearing is there are things outside, whether it be the running water or the sun or the breeze, that actually just opens up your mind. It releases and frees your mind in ways that you never could have imagined. And I'm being facetious about being the concrete jungle kid. But even in New York, where I can't always go for a hike in the woods, I don't even know if I want to go for a hike in the neighborhood, right? But but going outside just in the middle of a day to just walk around.
Yes.
I don't think enough people do that.
I mean, Central Park too, Mark.
Ooh,
I know it's not close to you, but Central Park you don't have to, yeah.
Yeah. But even for those who are not close to Central Park, like the idea of going for, even if it's a mini hike, even if it's a
Yes.
5-minute hike,
Ooh, I love that.
like we need to do that more often and allow ourselves. And if I could share this, and then I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I think there are some people who are afraid or hesitant to take your advice, Lestarya, because I'm on a 9 to 5. What am I going to tell my boss? I'm going for a walk. You better walk yourself right back over to that desk and get this deadline finished. I think there's a lot of leaders who need to hear that if you allow your teams to go on mini walks, mini hikes, how that could be beneficial. I'm just curious what your thoughts are around that.
Let's say
yes.
reach out to Mark's boss, okay?
Yeah. Definitely. Marc needs 120 minutes of nature time.
Every day.
Every day. Yes.
Every single day.
We can go from 0 to 100. Yep. There's so many layers to what you're saying. There's one, I think there's the worry about the going outside, right? And, what can happen. And then there's the other piece, which is the time piece, right? Like, when would I get this time in? And I think on the first, and I'll tell you, I grew up in Long Beach, California.
Yeah.
Love Long Beach.
I love
It
Long
is
Beach.
beautiful. They have done so much. So I love going back. But when I lived there, it really did have one of the highest crime rates in the state. And my mom and I, we didn't have a car, so we got around on bus, right? And we still, even, with all the neighborhood and everything to be thoughtful of, we would still make sure we went to the park, right? We went to the local park, which, that did wonders. Just like riding my bike around. I remember like my skates, and my mom would just like walk alongside, and that did wonders. So that's my starting point. So anything better than that is like, oh yeah, you're safe, you're good. So I will say that whether it's a pretty data point or not, statistically, you're actually safer being in outdoor spaces than even in the places where we are living because of the concentration of people. Like, there's plenty of data that shows that. So just for that side of the mind, just know that. So then once we can get through that barrier of safety and like, okay, maybe it is just as safe to go outdoors, and this should do it. From a timepiece, I mean, 24 hours in the day, our systems and the flow is all maximized for efficiency, right? Like, one of my friends says, oh, it's been designed to be a well-oiled machine. But what would it look like if we designed for being a meadow, right? And that's where you have a lot more fluidity in how things are grown. Man, nature is as efficient as anything, but it just has a different way of doing it. And
Mhm.
so I think, what would it look like? Like, and that's the outdoor oath. That analogy. It just really resonated with me. And so I think about that as an individual and how we spend our time. I think about, if we were going for a meadow, then maybe we could have, maybe as a community, we wouldn't have a lot of unfortunately, the stress, the health issues we have. I think what 60% of Americans have chronic health issues. 25% are dealing with like mental health issues. So I don't think it's a question of, should. It's really like, man, how do I change this so I don't end up also with chronic health issues that I'm living with, and stress that really starts to impede on how we function as human beings. So I think there's a real urgency for us to reevaluate how we spend time. And don't get me wrong, I actually really love all the chapters of my tech career. I was managing, built up the automotive business to about over $1 billion. And even while handling some of the highest crisis, like, man, this is going to be like super impactful on our P&L, right? Or, ooh, like, let me make sure I'm on this. Even then, I was still going outside. Like, I was literally, and I got to give kudos to my manager, because even with all he was doing, he was responsible for multi-billion dollars if I was responsible for over one. And he was still like, I'm always like having my time right during that lunch hour. And people just started to really respect that. And I did that with mine. And even when I had managers, when I was in corporate with the 9 to 5, who didn't role model that themselves, I still would like squeeze in that time, whether it be during the week or the weekends. And people just paid attention to what I got done. And what I was getting done was magic. And people ask me, how do you do that? I'm like, I make sure that I am getting out, because literally it benefits me personally, benefits me also professionally, to kind of tap into that vitamin C, Mark, that creativity. So,
DNC. I love it.
yeah, so I think it's really like an
Mm.
urgency for doing things differently so that we can, I think, get to the goals that we kind of want to.
Mm.
Lestea, I love that you kind of challenged all of us to make it more of a priority and to not just fall down the slip and slide that's already going. And you made me think about something. So my hubby works for a big company here in Oregon, shoe wear company, very busy, known for being very busy, right? And people that he works with, and he works at a really high level international, and there's a lot of projects and they're happening over two major international time zones. And people always tell him, wow, you're my PTO spirit animal, because he puts a hard line on, he really protects his time to
Mm.
get out in nature. He's the one that's gotten me into national parks. And so he doesn't, and like you said, Listea, like he gets his work done at like a high level, and and yet at the same time he protects that time, but it's also the thing that's allowing him to have that space to breathe and have the creativity, and you can get so much
Mm.
more done. And I thought of an idea when you were talking, Listea. I had this line that I thought of. um, it's just as much productivity time as it is playtime. So
Mm.
yeah, write that down, because it is. It's like
Yes.
I gathered that from what you were saying.
Yes.
It's like we try to make it be this or that, and it's not. I mean, it is hilarious so that you say like, oh, we get back to the car, and then we're like, oh, got to write that down. But in all seriousness, it leaves the space. And Listea, I don't know if you know this about Mark and I, but we have 10, I think we're nearing 12, 13, 14 years. So we've known each other. But when I first met Mark, I was coming to New York a lot at that time. My sister lived there and I was doing a lot of work there. And Mark and I would always carve out this time to bridge walk. It's something that I really enjoy doing. It's a thing that I've created, and I walk bridges with people around the world. And Mark, I mean, we've had some of the most creative, fun, close family connection like conversations on our bridge walk over the Brooklyn Bridge. Like
Mm.
it's the mini hike you were talking about, Mark. And it wasn't productivity for work per se. I would say it was productivity for our relationship and how
Mm.
close we became, right? So there's all different kinds of productivity too. It's not just a like there's work, there's play, and there's a hard line in between.
Yes, yes to that. I mean, we need it. We need it.
Productivity for your relationships.
Right?
You better get out of town on this one. Check it out.
Yeah.
You reminded me, and we don't always do this here in New York, although we should. But every time my family goes down to visit my mother-in-law, after dinner, we always go out for a mini hike. I mean, it's mini. But we go for a walk, right? And it's so cool. I mean, it wakes you up after feeling sort of downtrodden after a heavy dinner. The open air just fills you with something. It's become a bonding experience. So it becomes productivity for our relationship. I love this. And you said something earlier, Lestarya, that I'm just curious about. The well-oiled machine versus the Meadow.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know how often you use that. But the reason why I think it triggers me is because, and Cathey, I don't know if you remember this, we had a conversation a while ago about how sometimes when you're so busy, it feels like you're drudging through the quicksand. And then somebody said, but for me, it's sort of like trudging through chocolate fudge. I might be bogged down with a lot of stuff, but I love what I'm bogged down by. And that just switched my mentality. I use that all the time now. This whole thing about not the well-oiled machine, but the Meadow. Can you just say a little bit more about that? Because I think that's a mind shift metaphor.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. And by the way, I love that you doing your mini hikes. I just got to tell you. So, you're more outdoorsy than you let on.
That is true, Mark. You
Yeah.
walk more than many New Yorkers, I would say. You walk a
Yeah.
lot and fast.
Yeah. But I mean, and I tell you, I studied economics at Berkeley. And so I definitely know like we have these systems that are in place that are meant to really maximize on profit. It's meant to maximize on resources, right? And capital. And that's a system that's been set up, right? And it goes back to history and wanting to get the most out of what we have, right? But what I was most interested in, and I actually studied environmental economics and policy, was what if you actually maximized on not just on profit, right? And what you're getting output from. What if we maximized on our happiness? What would that look like? And that's not always even numbers, right? That's like decimals in there. That's and when I think about a meadow, in Oregon, it's taking me back to some that I've passed through recently. Things are uneven, right? They get different amounts of sun. They get different amounts of nutrition. They just look different. And there's like beautiful different flowers or different plants that are able to really thrive. But that only happens when we let nature happen, right? When we let nature take its course. And I mean, the meadows wouldn't be meadows if we architected each and everything, right? It would then just it wouldn't be a freaking meadow, right? So I I'm just thinking, what if, I know it's crazy. I mean, what if as human beings we maximize for our quality of life overall,
Mm.
which we can call that happiness. And I bet if we did, the formula for that would include a lot more play and productivity that happens outside in this beautiful playground that we have and this beautiful land that I so respect. I think we would spend actually less time in front of our computer. I don't know. We still get a lot done, don't get me wrong, but it just get done differently. But it's scary to think about maybe going about things differently because we just know sitting in front of this computer to, get the most out of the 9 to 5. But what if I said you could get just as much done if you took some time away? You might even come up with your next $1 million or multi-million-dollar idea, just like you did, Cathey, that's a really scary thought to give ourselves permission to just maybe grow naturally and organically versus kind of just like staying put.
It's like, yeah, you could finish your work inside and you can even come up with the answer or the solution inside. But if you go outside, you might very well come up with a better answer, a better solution, something you hadn't even thought about before.
Yeah.
Sure. Because you just fed your mind, you fed your body, you fed your spirit. If you took that hike or that camping trip, with your friend, then you just fed your relationship to not just yourself, but to each other, right?
Yeah. You know, I love where you landed, Lestarya, on this as well, because um, I really love this thought about like, what if we were trying to maximize our happiness? And Mark, it made me think of something that we did in Speaker Skills Academy the other day. We had one of our coaches she's a career coach, and she was teaching executive presence. And she was talking, and we were taking sentences and we were saying them with different tones. And some of the tones were like unsure or doubtful or insecure or angry or upset or like, all these different tones. And, the ones that were most direct, but actually were kind and happy, were the most effective. And you made me think too that there's even another layer to it is if you're maximizing your happiness, that thing starts to really, you know, it, that one spreads. Like, I always say this about you, Mark. I hate to put you on the spot. I know. You're the most positive person I know. And anytime people are in a room with you, even if something really hard or challenging is going on, you always have this energy of positivity and happiness around it. And you'll accept things for being hard, but you also don't let the positiveness go. Like you keep it and you maintain it. And so, Lestarya, I think that I love, like, I could see you using that line a little bit more if you haven't already. It's like, what if we were trying to maximize our happiness? How could that make our life better in work, at home, in play, and productivity? Like, what are all the spaces? Because that adds another layer on top of like it being good for your health. It adds another layer onto it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got out for a walk before this call, just so you know. So I didn't know we were going to go there, but I'm glad that it just shows what can come out when we let ourselves um, just really be happy, right? That's what this is all about.
I'm laughing because this goes back several years ago. I had a speaking engagement and I still probably had about a good half an hour before I had to speak to the group. And I remember going for a mini hike in the parking lot. I was just
Whatever.
doing laps around the parking lot. And I remember that it relaxed me and just put me in a certain space that I just remember going back in, and it felt different. It felt different. And it was one of the only times that I had gone for a walk before. Could you imagine people going for walks before meeting? People going to walks before brainstorming? People going for walks before dinner? Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So imagine what the mini walk did for you. Imagine what the hike did for you or will do for you. Now imagine what 48 hours in nature camping will do. So, like, that just gives people there's just so many ways to really tap into our deepest selves and just get to this total bliss. Like, the answer is right outside.
I love the advocacy also of the whole spectrum of it. And one of them, and when you were saying it, Mark, I was thinking if you can't get to nature, bring nature to you. Like just get outside. And, I will tell you, when my sister lived in Queens, I've never been to a place outside of Africa. Africa was a totally different space that you wake up and you hear all these animals. So many like birds chirping in Queens. Like it was like something I kept telling my sister. I'm like, I don't think I see this many birds in Oregon. Like there's a lot of birds out here that they're still finding nature, even within, the New York City kind of space. They're finding the trees and they're finding those spaces. And so you really made me think of that. And you're out walking a lot. If you look at what the heart and soul and spirit of what Lestarya is saying, and she's saying, oh, imagine if you're actually sleeping in a tent and you're looking at stars and there's no light pollution. That's one thing all the way over here. But even if you can't do that, get outside and breathe different, move your body, look at trees. Y'all have trees in New York, right?
I think so.
Go find the trees.
Find the tree. And man, we'll even add another step in. We take an even extra little step, even just filling your home with plants. Depending on how big spaces are, having plants in the room, that also, I was totally admiring your plant, by the way. Yeah, it was a really healthy one.
Yeah. Mark's like,
I'll propagate one for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's really just so many ways to go about incorporating nature into our life more. And it's just like such a natural way for us to tap into ourselves and get more out of why we're here and how we do it.
I will double down on what Cathey picked up. Maximize on your happiness. I can think of days, especially when it was a little warm out. New York, we go through our seasons, but I remember just taking a lunch break where I was like, I'm going to walk the furthest I can in the time that I have. And, I was in Manhattan and I was able to sit on the water, right? It was at a pier, and just to sit there and just look at the water.
Yeah.
Take that walk there and then sit on the water was so relaxing. And then taking that slow walk back. I mean, you got things to do, but taking your time and, like you said, Cathey, breathing it in differently, consuming it differently. Awesome. I'll tell you this real quick thing. You might be surprised. I went to sleepaway camp a couple of times. One year I went to sleepaway camp for the whole summer, and one year they asked if you wanted to sign up for a 3-day hike. I signed up for a 3-day hike on the Appalachian Trails. One of the most memorable experiences ever. I mean, hiking all day, pitching the tent, cooking pasta on the dirt. I mean, it was one of the most memorable experiences. And I can't always get away to the Appalachian Trails, but I can always get away for a mini hike or a longer walk or just get outside. My stepfather used to say that all the time. Go outside. And I see the benefits, and I just wish that so many people can start going and getting outside to maximize on their happiness.
Mm.
Mark, I didn't know you did that. I've known you
Yeah.
forever, and I didn't even know. I didn't even know. I'm like, you need to talk about this more.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh.
Really
Yes.
cool, Mark.
I don't think I can get my family to do it.
Hey.
But
You got them doing mini
maybe
hikes.
we'll start with the mini hike. And during the mini hike, I'll be like, no, after the mini hike, I'll be like, did you enjoy it? All right, let me show you an episode if it's about to go down. Blow your mind.
I promise you too, Mark. You get your whole family out here to the Pacific Northwest, and we can tap our toe into. We don't have to full blown go on the Pacific Crest Trail for you just go out, and I mean our forest park, which is a very small version of. Well, it's not even, you can't even relate it to Central Park, but it's the largest urban park that we have in Oregon, and it's just filled with miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of beautiful, beautiful greenery and trails. And a lot of people in Portland just literally go to it and go there for an hour, like take a lunch and go there, go run, whatever. You don't have to go to the full blown max over here. You can tap in a little bit more. It's easy and fun and productive and playful.
All at the same time.
Lestarya. Okay, let's do this. I have this like idea for Lestarya because she has said so many awesome things, right? What if we were thinking about how to maximize our happiness, that we should be thinking about playfulness, and playfulness is productivity, is really what she said. That's why I came up with the line. Lestarya, what would be your big call to action for people? Like if somebody's listening right now and you're like, what would you want them to do with what we've been talking about?
Mm. I would just encourage folks to go outside, like get outdoors. And that's going to mean something different for every person. Because with Friday Outdoors, I will say everyone has a different definition of even what that means to spend time outside in the outdoors. And that's every definition is exactly what's supposed to be for that person. So I think what I would encourage folks is to take that picture and go do it, right? And after you make that a habit, right, it takes some time to really build it as a habit, but then step it up even a little bit more and see and do some check-ins just with yourself. You're like, do I feel happier? Do I feel healthier? How has that changed? And how has that benefited me in even other ways that I didn't expect? So I encourage people to get outside and do that, but then also have some reflections while they're doing it. And I'm willing to bet the answer is going to be, oh, this is amazing. I didn't even know I need this. And then you're just going to need to do, and then you're just going to want to do it more and more. And then, and then you'll be camping before you know it. So yeah,
You'll be sleeping on it.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you've encouraged me, Mark, I'm just going to say it on our show. You've encouraged me. I'm going to take a challenge because of what you're saying. I'm going to find a meeting where I don't need to be in front of a computer, and I'm going to go outside and take it outside. I live really close to some big trees and a trail, and I can literally just take my phone and do it outside. So one of my meetings tomorrow, whoever you lucky person is that's going to be on the other call with me, is going to be taking a meeting with me outside. So that's what I'm going to do.
I love that. Mark, how about you? What are you thinking?
I am going to, before a meeting on my schedule tomorrow, before the meeting, I'm going to go take a walk.
Nice.
And I'm not just going to go outside. I'm going to spend time outside.
Mm.
You overachiever, Mark.
I love it. I love it. Well, I tell you, I am getting outside every day, but I'll even step it up a little more. I have been admiring the trail runners. So for me, since I'm already making sure to get outside, I'm actually going to explore taking my runs from the streets to the trails. So,
Yeah.
and I'll let you know
Oh,
how that goes.
so much more enjoyable.
Mhm.
Like that. Well, I don't know how many trails we got here in New York. I'm sure we got a couple in Central Park and maybe Prospect Park. But you know what? I'll take a trail up Fifth Avenue and take the trail right back down to Fourth Avenue, and it'll be a nice trail because there's a lot of nature to see out here in New York City.
Oh, yes. And there is actually a Black-owned campground that's in New York, Bohemian Retreats. So I'll message you about them.
What? That's awesome.
Mhm.
Is it like upstate New York? Kind of right outside of.
It's Catskills.
Ah, that's too far.
Ah, damn. There's another one though. I don't know the name, but there's another one, Black-owned. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll message you.
Okay. All right. All right. Time for a family vacation.
Yeah.
Who needs to go to Disney World?
There's nature all around. And I will say, when I came to New York, I think I walked around that whole city. Like, I didn't even need a cab. Like, I just walked around and let myself have unstructured time. I picked what street I was going to go down, just following my energy. And I had the best time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Love that.
New York has been transformative.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, my wife's gonna love you because she loves taking walks, and she'll walk anywhere for no matter how long. So I better go. I better go get a new pair of shoes.
Sounds good. Yeah. I also actually I'm going to take on one more thing that I'm going to do. I want to do the Cathey Bridge Walk.
Yes.
And do you want to share what that is? Because I think that's something else I'm going to commit to doing too.
Yeah, I make a time where it's just me and one other person because a third person adds a different dynamic, and we intentionally walk all the way across the bridge and all the way back. And we use that. I've just intentionally made that a space where whatever we share stays within that container of space. And many times it's been really great conversations. And so I just officially call them bridge walks. And I vowed to do 10 before I died with 10 people I love all over the world, and I think I've already done 4. So in
Yeah.
different countries, and so yeah.
So I'm signing up. I'm signing myself up for that. And I remember you saying that you might have something in mind that you're working through, and by the end of like getting to the other side of the bridge, you've left that behind.
Oh yeah. I told you that when I walked with my friend from what he's now my friend that Pietro, I told him something that I had never told any other person except for I think my sister at that point was the only person. And I was like, you know what, Pietro, I'm going to tell you this thing. And then I'm just going to leave it on because we were walking to an island and back. I'm like, I'm going to leave it on the island and it's not coming back with me. And I feel like there's some very metaphorical, cool things about crossing over a body of water or a bridge. You're bridging the gap between two places, or you're leaving something on the other side and not bringing it back. So yeah, we could chat on that on our bridge walk. You pick a bridge in Portland and we'll walk.
Oh, we got plenty to choose
Oh, we
from.
got
So yeah.
plenty.
Okay. You'll know when I complete mine because we'll do it together.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
Wait, I just got one other thing to say. The next time, and I'm already manifesting it, the next time the three of us get together for a conversation or a walk, I would love for us to even talk further about all of the benefits of not just being outside, but even just concentrating on the act of walking and hiking.
Mm.
Because I think that's the next level vitamin and medicine that we need to feed to people.
Yes.
You said
Yeah.
hiking to heal, so yes, that's another one. Yeah.
You got it.
All right, so let's say we've had an awesome conversation. I think Cathey's pretty much already asked you what's that like one thing you want people to walk away with. I'm just curious. Is there anything that has come out of this conversation that just kind of sparked your thinking in a way that you hadn't thought about before, or maybe introduced something for you or changed something for you? Or what's resonated for you after this
Mm.
metaphorical talk walk?
Ooh, I think there's a lot of things actually that came out as we were talking and that I hadn't really taken note of, which is I talk a lot about getting people into camping in the outdoors, right? With Friday Outdoors, right? Um, and I've really been thinking about it's not just about the health benefits is a big one for me. And it's the physical and the mental health. But the happiness, I don't think I've quite talked about as much with anyone. So thank you for letting that part of it also start to take root. I think I'll be digging into that more to really help people move through these ideas of yes, there are bugs and all sorts of things out there, but really thinking about what's possible that we don't know until we experience it. And everyone wants to be happy. And the answer is literally just, gotta get out there and do it. So yeah, I'll think about how I tap into that. So thank you for creating the space that you guys have and to allow even more ideas to really take root that I hadn't quite delved into before.
Perfect, perfect. And how do you make people happy by telling them how they can find out about you and Friday Outdoors and all the wonderful things you do?
Yes. So our website's FridieOutdoors.com. It's FRIDIE Outdoors. And we have our app, which is on both the iOS store for our Apple users and Android, so that people can really feel supported as they're getting out and need that inspiration and preparing. But then it also works offline. So then we can even be there if you really need some resources in the moment. We just want people to feel so supported throughout their whole journey and just taking that next step.
Mm. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for bringing this happiness into our conversation. Thank you for prompting us to get outside, to spend time outside, to go on mini walks, 48-hour camping trips, and everything of that nature. Thank you so much. And to anybody out there who wants to spread the happiness, whether it be through a walk or a talk about an idea, hit Cathey and I up at Marc and Cathey. It's about to go down show. We'd love to have a conversation with you. But until next time, turn us off, go for a walk, and when you come back, we'll still be here for another episode of It's About to Go Down.